Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Today I am back with a new parasha, which is a PARASHAH KI TAVO, in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 26, 1 to 29, 8. And as we have seen in the last parasha, this is just before the children of Israel enter into the land of Canaan and the death of Moshe. So today the Pasha speak about different things when they enter the land, but today I want to fix one point which is very important to understand for us believers, and it is about the curse of the law. Because in the chapter 28 we have a long series of curses, and I want to explain something. We see in the chapter 28 we have 15 verses which speak about blessing, and all the rest, about 60 speak about the curse. And I want first of all to show the accuracy of the curse of the Torah, how Elohim speak and by consequences bring the curse upon people by disobedience. Here this curse is a national curse for disobedience, because he speaks to the children of Israel as a nation. They will enter Canaan and they are under the obligation of keeping the Torah, as we all are as a nation, Israel, in the obligation to keep the Torah. I know that there are many false information. Some teach that we have to keep the 10 words from Shemot, Exodus 20, but is that really true? How do you understand how you shall love your neighbors as yourself if you don't study the Torah? There are many points. How do you know how to judge people in the Commonwealth of Israel? And I just give 2 examples, but there are many. We need the Torah, the old Torah, to understand. And Shaul, Paul, bring it even further to explain in Romans 12, verse 2. He said that it is by the study of the Torah that we renew our mind. He said, I beseech you, brethren, that you not be conformed to this world, but be you transformed by the renewing of your mind. The renewing of the mind comes by studying the Torah and applying to our life. It is a long life process which started the day we follow Yeshua. We leave Jesus behind us and we follow Yeshua. In this moment, the first step we do is, as everyone knows, we keep the Shabbat. But this is a process. It's a process which brings us to grow in spiritual understanding, and not to be led by their doctrines, but by the very word of the living Elohim. So now, today, there is among believers certain doctrine that I want to go against concerning the curse of the Torah. Christianity that say that the Jews have been cursed because they don't believe Jesus. And others do not understand what is this curse which Yeshua took upon himself. I will speak about Galatians and show you something which is very interesting to understand and which brings a great hope. Now, first of all, I want to show that the accuracy of the Torah in the curse, and I will take an example from the chapter 28, and I will show you how it is. Now I will read. Everyone, I hope, has read the PARASHAH KI TAVO. When you come in the land, when you take possession from the land, and here in this series of curses. And he say, in the list in verse 52, he says, and they shall besiege you, as your enemy, at all your gates, till your high and fenced walls, in which you are trusting, come down in all your land, and they shall besiege you at all your gates, in all your land, which Jehovah your Elohim has given you. You see, Elohim will let the enemy defeat the people because of disobedience. Now, it goes on in verse 53, it says, you shall eat the fruit of your own body, the flesh of your sons and your daughters, whom Jehovah your Elohim has given you in the siege and distress in which your enemy distressed you. This is a terrible statement, almost unimaginable today. But let's see what is going on. We have the prophet Yirmiyahu who speak and said clearly, from the verse, chapter 19, verse 6, therefore see, the days are coming, declares Jehovah, that this place shall no more be called Tophet, of the valley of the son of Hinnom, but rather the valley of slaughter. And I shall pour out the counsel of Yehuda and Jerusalem in this place, and I shall make them fall by the sword, before the enemy, and by the hands of those who seek their life, and I shall give their corpses as meat for the bird of the heaven and for the beast of the earth. And I shall make this city a ruin and a hissing. Every one who passes by it appeal and hisses because of all its plagues. Verse 9, and I shall make them to eat the flesh of their sons, the flesh of their daughters, and eat once another's flesh in the siege and in the distress with which the enemy and those who seek their life distress them. First of all, we can see that the prophet speaks the Torah. He doesn't speak out of his mind, he speaks what the Torah says. And he says now the warning is coming upon you because of disobedience. And we know the first time the temple was destroyed was under Nebuchadnezzar. And in the siege, they eat their own children. They eat their own children. We have to imagine that. We have to try to imagine that a man or a woman who bear a child was able to eat her own child. And this happened in the time of Nebuchadnezzar, but it happened also in the 70th year, in the destruction of the second temple. You can read in from Josephus Flavius, you can read in details what's happened when Titus came against Jerusalem, and when they besieged Jerusalem, they had the Jerusalem control of Jerusalem. People that cannot go out, and in the beginning they thought that they are strong because they have enough food. But came a point in life where we see in the narrative from Josephus Flavius how the woman killed their own babies, saying that it is better for them that they die than to live this life under Roman slavery. They eat the children. It is the fulfillment, exactly, literally, what Jehovah says in Devarim, Deuteronomy 28. We see that it is not something we should take lightly. I don't speak from this curse, but in general, all what we read in the Torah shall we take seriously. And this is what happened here. You can read yourself. You go, it is written, I don't have here now the book from Josephus Flavius here to give you exactly the quote, but I can assure you, because I have read myself, that Josephus Flavius speak about that. He write upon it how they have eat their own children. So what is terrible, and they fight against one another. They were under the distress of the time. So in the time of Nebuchadnezzar and in 70 CE, we see the word of Jehovah is accurate. Now, we have the curse And we have here the blessing. Yahweh say, if you obey my voice, if you obey my mitzvot and my commandments, you will be blessed above all the people of the earth. And your land will bear abundance. You will never miss something. The woman will not have a miscarriage. You will be blessed. That all nations will see that. But if you disobey, then Yahweh will turn against you. Now, I will go to another passage. As I say in the beginning, many things that the curse is for the Jew and that the Christians are blessed, which is not true, which is absolutely not true. Because the curse will not come because we don't believe Jesus. There is no mention in the Torah that the curse will come if you don't believe Jesus. The curse will come if we disobey the word of Jehovah, no matter who is there. Now, the curse is for everyone who is in the covenant with Elohim, and I will go further that many people from the world are suffering because the word applied to everyone. The word applied to everyone. Doing what is right in the eyes of Elohim brings blessing. He brings blessing even for pagans. And he brings curse for those who disobey. In different form. Now, I will go to this place and I will show you, which seems to be in contradiction. First of all, we have to know, when Yeshua came, he didn't come as the Mashiach. He has to become the Mashiach. Yes, he was the Mashiach, planned in the mind of Elohim before the creation of the world. He exists in the mind of Elohim to become the Mashiach. But he has to show himself worthy as a Ben Adam, as a son of Adam. And for this, we can have that. You can read that in the book of Hebrew. You can read that in different places. Yeshua came first as a prophet like Moshe. I have read that, I think, in the last parasha. I will read it again. If we go to the book of Yohanan, chapter 1, we can read that, and we see here, in the verse 45, we can read, I will read from 43. On the following day, Yahushua wished to go to Galilee, and he found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Kepha. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him whom Moshe wrote of in the Torah and the prophets, Yahushua of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." And Nathanael said to him, "It is possible for any good matter to come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." So this is the first time we see that. And after that, we found it in other place. Now, if we look at it, let me see. I think it is in the chapter, chapter 6. Let me see if I found it. 5. I don't think I have it here. Let me see. No, I don't have it here, but it is in different place. And I will show you that in the book of Matthew, we read, in the chapter 4, we read following. After Yeshua was tempted by Satan, he went and began his ministry. And we read in chapter 4, verse 12, "And Yeshua, having heard that Yohanan had been put in prison, withdrew into Galilee." There is something interesting with Galilee, but this will be another video. "And leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Capernaum, which is by the sea, in the border of Zebulun and Naphtali, to fulfill what was spoken by Yeshua the prophet, saying, Land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Goyim, the nations. The people sat in darkness saw the great light, and upon those who sat in the land and shadow of death, light arose to them. He is quoting Yeshayahu 9, verse 1 and 2. From that time, Yahushua began to proclaim and to say, repent, shuv, for the reign of the heaven has drawn near. This is what Yeshua was doing. He was a prophet. The work of the prophet is to bring back the people to Elohim, to the simplicity of the Torah, to the way of life, not to change anything. He was not come at this time to change the system of the Pharisee, of the Sadducee, of the scribe. He didn't do anything against that. Yeshua was under the Torah himself, even if he was the Torah, the living Torah. That this is a term I will explain in another video. The living Torah. Yes, he was living Torah. We have to understand that. We should know that when Yohanan write his book, the book of John, Yohanan, he wrote it in the Sod. The Sod is the fourth level of the interpretation of the Torah in the Pardes. The Pardes is an acronym for Shat, which means literal, the Remes, which means a hint, the Drash, which is a teaching we learn, and the Sod, which is a mystery or the secret which is hidden behind the letter. Yohanan was a Jew, and when he wrote in this level of Sod, so we cannot interpret it literally unless we make a mistake. Okay, so now I go back to the work of Yeshua in Galatians, and this is very important to understand. We were speaking in the beginning about the curse. So many people say, oh, we are no more on the curse, it's finished, now we have the blessing. Yeah, yes, we can be blessed, but we can also have curse, and I will show you that. I will go to Galatians, because it is quoted in Galatians, and this is yes, in the verse 10 we read, for as many as of the works of Torah are under the curse, what has been written, curse is everyone who does not continue in all that has been written in the book of the Torah to do them. And then, in verse 13, he says, Mashiach redeemed us from the curse of the Torah, having become a curse for us, for it has been written, cursed is everyone who hangs on the tree, quoting Devarim 21:23. Is that true that Yeshua was cursed? How can Yeshua be cursed if he was obeying the Torah in a perfect way? There's something we are missing here. Same thing we are missing, and I want to explain that. First of all, he said, for as many as of the works of Torah under the curse has been written. The works of Torah. The works of Torah, we have to understand here. I will give you a clear example of the work of the Torah. We go to the book of Acts, chapter 15, and we read. Verse 1, a certain man came down from Yehuda and were teaching the brothers, unless you are circumcised according to the practice of Moshe, you cannot be saved. You see, here they connected the fact to be circumcised with salvation. That is the work of the Torah. The work of the Torah says that you need to do something in order to earn something. You work. But it's not so. Here, we know that, I go back to Galatians, we know, if you read the whole book of Acts 15, you will see the conclusion is very interesting. Jacob answers verse 13 and say, Shimon, I want to, before from verse 7, and when there have been much dispute, because Shaul and Barnabas decided not to take the decision themselves, they decided to go to to those who were the pillars of the faith in Yeshua. It means Yaakov, Kepha, and Yohanan, to explain, to see what they think about that. And he say, okay, and some of the believers who belong to the sect of the Pharisees rose up and saying, it is necessary to circumcise them and to command them to keep the Torah of Moshe. And the emissaries and elders came together to look into this matter. Also, they will discuss now the PARASHAH, how we interpret that, how we understand that. And where there had been much dispute, Kepha rose up and said to them, men, brothers, you know that a good while ago Elohim chose among us that by my mouth the nation should hear the word of the good news and believe. And Elohim, who know the heart, bore witness to them by giving them the set-apart spirit as also to us, and made no distinction between us and them, cleansing their heart by emunah, by belief. Now then, why do you try Elohim by putting a yoke on the neck of the taught ones, which neither our father nor we were able to bear? You see, here is the point. The work of the Torah, which exists. The work of the Torah is when we count the mitzvah we are doing in order to earn something, which is absolutely wrong. And after that, the Yaakov speak, and he say, Shimon has declared, verse 14, Shimon has declared to how Elohim first visited the nation to take out of them a people for his name. And the word of the prophet agree with this, as it has been written, after this, I shall return and rebuild the booth of David, which has fallen down, and I shall rebuild its ring, I shall set it up. After the booth of David, or the sukkah of David, is a term which explains that the only moment when all Israel, the 12 tribes, was united was under David and his son Shlomo. After that, he was again divided. And was not under Shaul. Shaul was not able to reunite the 12 tribes. So he will rebuild, so that the remnant of mankind shall seek Jehovah, even all the Goyim, the nations, on whom my name has been called, says Jehovah, who is doing all these things. Was made this known from of old. Therefore, say Yaakov, I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim, but that we write to them to abstain from the defilement of idols, from warring, from what is strangled, and from blood. So to understand that, we have to dig into the Torah. This is for another time. For from ancient generation, Moshe has in every city those proclaiming him being read in the congregation every Shabbat. So very interesting, because he says this is the beginning of the walk of a believer. When a believer turns to Yeshua and walk in the Torah, he will go somewhere in an assembly who teach Torah, not make a debate or doctrines or discuss about the 10 words, but teach the Torah, parashat after parashat every week. And he say, the first step is that they abstain from defilement of idols, from worrying, from that what is strangled, and from blood. That is the first requirement. And all the rest will be learned Shabbat after Shabbat, month after month, when we grow in spiritual understanding. Now, we go back to our Galatians to understand what is going on here with the curse which Yeshua took upon him. Okay, so Mashiach redeemed us, Galatians 3:13, from the curse of the Torah, having become a curse for us, who has been written, cursed is everyone who hangs upon a tree. And we know that Yeshua died on the tree, on the stake, and that they want to remove the body before the night came, because it is written in the Torah that the body cannot stay on the tree the night. Okay? So, but what is going on, what we can understand, does Yeshua nullify the curse of Devarim 28, or all the curse which are in the Torah? Does he nullify that? By, he say here, he has been becoming a curse for us. Now, I go to another place to explain in Colossians chapter 2. Now, it's the same Shaul speaker. He say, okay. Okay. Alors, I will start a bit earlier. And in chapter 2, Colossians chapter 2, verse 11, in him you were also circumcised with a circumcision not made with hands, in the putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Mashiach. So this is the circumcision of the heart. Have been buried with him in immersion, in which you also were raised with him through the belief in the working of Elohim who raised him from the dead. And you, being dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, he has made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses. I mean, before we come to Yeshua, we are dead people. We are alive. Yes, we live. There are people that live 90 years, 100 years old. They become 100 years old. But they are dead. Spiritually, they are dead. They have no life in themselves. But he says, he has made alive together with him. Now, verse 14. Having blotted out that which was written by hand against us. Colossians 2:14. By the dogma which stood against us. And he has taken it out the way, having nailed it into the stake. You see, we see the handwriting against us by the dogmas. And we have to understand these dogmas, because if we do not understand that, we will not understand why Yeshua has become, as it is written, has become a curse for us. The question is, where does this handwriting comes? What is this handwriting, what was against us? What is that? This is what we have to understand. If we read the Torah, if we study the Torah, we will understand that the Torah is beneficial for mankind. First of all, for Israel. Obedience brings blessing. Disobedience brings curse or punishment. So punishment, according to the Torah, you cannot punish somebody just so. They have to be brought to the Beit Din, and the Beit Din will decide, the court of judgment, the judge will decide what is against him, and if he's guilty, they will write a document against him. That the document, that is the handwriting which is against the man who sinned. The man who sinned. This is the consequences of the sin in the nation of Israel. He will have to bear the consequence of his sin. Sin is a transgression of the Torah, I remember. Okay? So, now, what is the work of Yeshua? Yeshua, he took upon us not our curse. He didn't bring he cannot have the curse. He brought the consequence of curse upon himself. The consequence of curse upon himself. By doing that, he nullified the handwriting that was written in the heavenly place against us because of our sin. Our past sin, not now, our past sin. So that we are free to be reconciled with Elohim. This is what Shaul has in mind when he explained, when he's speaking about Galatians chapter 3 and in Colossians. We have to reconcile that. The curse and the blessing are still working today. Obedience brings blessing, disobedience brings curse. So, but thanks be to Jehovah that Yeshua took upon himself the penalty of death. This means that we are free in Mashiach from the second death. Not from the first death, because it is written, in the book of Hebrew, it is written, it is given to every man, to die once, after that the judgment. This judgment in Mashiach is nullified by the work of Mashiach if we walk with him. So we have to understand that in Galatians, Shaul never speak the fact that we are no more under curse. We can be under curse because every action has a consequence in life. If I do good, I will reap good. If I do bad, I will reap bad. You can look that. Everyone will have to go through the process. Yes, I know. Jehovah is patient with every one of us. Remember, in the book of Yohanan, chapter 1, you can read, Yohanan explained that today when a believer sin, he repent. He said, if we sin and we repent, Jehovah is good to forgive us and to cleanse us from every unrighteousness. Today we have a relationship through Yeshua with the living Elohim. So when we sin and we have our spirit, we have our conscience who goes and bring us to repentance, to make teshuvah, then Yohanan explained that Jehovah is good to forgive us. You see, this is the difference between before and now. Now we're living in a living relationship with a living King, the King of Kings. And then through Yeshua, we have access to his throne. So this is a very fundamental understanding to be free from everything. This means my sins from the past, I have bare consequence for that, but I am not under the curse concerning the judgment. I am free from the judgment through Yeshua. Baruch Hashem Yehovah. We are free from that. Whatever we have done in our past, Yeshua has nailed the handwriting to the stake. And now we are free. So we can see today believers bearing the consequence of their sin. Don't go too fast to condemn them because we are like them, we are flesh. We all bear the flesh of Adam. We all bear the flesh of Adam. Yeshua came to restore the sin of Adam. And all mankind born after Adam bear the same struggle, the flesh, which is divided in two parts, which represent in spiritual ways with different approach, but I don't want to go into it today. We have the good inclination and the bad inclination, the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. This is a battle within every human being. This is why Shaul says somewhere, he say, walk in the Ruah, walk in the spirit, you shall not fulfill the desire of the flesh. This is this battle that we have every day. And we have the victory. If we walk in the Torah, if we follow Yeshua, we have the victory. We don't have to suffer. We may suffer for something, but there is also a reason. Because Elohim wants us to grow. And in order to grow, we have to go through the challenge, because we must reflect the image of Yeshua. And people misunderstand that the processing of growing is a long process. A child, when he's born, he doesn't eat meat. It takes time before he has teeth and he begins to eat meat. And it takes time before he can walk. And it takes time before he can speak. This is the same for us. When we enter into Mashiach, when we are with Yeshua, it will take years before we grow. And some will not grow. Why? Because they swallow the doctrine of man. They go to a dead assembly, which is in battle for nothing, make a vain discussion, and do not teach the Torah. This is why I have said that if your assembly do not teach Torah, leave, because you lose your time. No, yes, you met nice people, but nice people, they're everywhere. Everywhere you can find nice people. But if you want to grow, you have to look at it. What does my assembly, what does my leader teach? Does it teach the Torah, the parasha, every week? And go and dig into it to explain the essence of the Torah. Because, as I say, we have 4 levels of interpretation. If you read the parasha in the Peshat level, you will learn a nice story, a story about the children of Israel. But if you want to learn, you will have to dig into the remes, the drash, that means what I learned from that, and to grow in order to understand the soul, the mystery, what is behind it, which is revealed in Yeshua. Okay, so I hope that you understand that the curse is not removed. The curse is still there. What is removed is the consequence of the curse. That is Yeshua. That is the work of Yeshua. The consequence of the curse, which was against us, has been nailed to the stake. And now we are free. Our conscience do not bear that. It's free. This year we are free to worship. We are free to love. We are free to move in Mashiach, because we are free from this penalty that was against us. But we are not free from the curse of the Torah. The curse of the Torah still exists. But where there is curse, there is also blessing. And we can have the blessing. We can have the blessing. We have just to understand how to walk and how I read the Torah. And if necessary, I have to look for a better way to learn. We have to look for a better way to learn. So I will have to have fellowship with those who love the Torah, who learn the Torah, who explain the Torah. And if I have a brother, myself, I am like you. I go and learn with others, because there are many who know much more than me. So I want to learn. And I go with those Jews who can teach me about the beauty of the Torah. So brothers and sisters, today when you read the Torah, think about that. The curse, we can avoid every curse because of the mercy of Jehovah. We are just to be obedient people. And obedient is that I will look at my neighbor and I will love him as it is written. Love your neighbor as yourself. And it's not in words, but it's in action. And believe me, action, you don't need to have millions of dollars to be a good brother. But sometimes it's to give time. Just give time to listen to somebody because he's in distress. Or help him because he needs somebody to help him to build something. Just take a few hours to help him, and so on and so on. This is how we work, to love. This is Torah. This is Torah. And we have to be honest in our speech, in our mind. When we see another brother, this one. No, let him. He's also a brother. He's also in Yeshua. He's also believing. So, be patient with him, as you are patient with yourself, or as Elohim is patient with you, or with me. Okay? So, I hope this short message will help you to understand what is a curse, what Jehovah has done for us through Yeshua, and that we can walk really in blessing, avoid curse, but anyway, that the consequence of the curse, which is a spiritual approach, is not just physical. The spiritual approach, this means the penalty that bring the second death is removed from the way in Yeshua. And that is very important to understand. This means a great hope in our life and no condemnation. Remember, Shaul, Paul says in Romans chapter 8, he says, therefore, there is no condemnation for those who are in Yeshua. No condemnation. Why? Because the effect, the consequence of the judgment that was against us has been removed. Has been removed. So today, if peradventure I should sin, I will repent and I restore the way with a deep intention not to do it anymore. And the way is restored because this is the work of Yeshua. Thanks be to Jehovah. So I wish you a lot of blessing for the coming week as we are now looking toward the 7th month. We finish the month, the 6th month, which is the month of Elul, which encourage every one of us to search our heart, to see what we have done wrong, to repent for it before we come to the 7th month with the Yom Kippur. And for Yom Kippur, we have to join our bread from Yehuda in the day of fasting, to fast with Yehuda, to pray for one another, but to pray also for Yehuda, that Yehuda also come to the deliverance that is in Mashiach Yeshua. Okay? So I wish you a lot of blessing and we'll see you next week, Jehovah's willing, for a new video. Shalom and Shavua Tov.